only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
The National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm warning.
Welcome to the Common Sense Practical Prepper Podcast, where prepping doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. Coming to you from a well-defended off-grid compound high in the mountains. Coming to you from his Florida room in Richmond, Virginia. Neither off-grid nor well-defended, unless you count his chickens and cats. Here is your host, Keith.
Hey all, this is Keith and welcome back to the Common Sense Practical Prepper Podcast, October 22nd, 2025. And I want to talk about a very serious subject tonight. So remember several podcasts ago, I talked about Sarah Adams, TPA Sarah on X, and the information that she's been providing via her X account for everybody to read. Remember, she is a former CIA targeter. She no longer works for the CIA, but she does advise certain government agencies on impending threats and terrorists that want to attack America. Now, all the information that she gathers, for the most part, is through what's called OSINT, open source intelligence. The internet is a great place to get information from, both good and bad. Reading other people's posts, looking at videos, you can glean a lot of information from what you read and see online. Now, there certainly is a lot of disinformation out there. I've never met Sarah, but I think she has the country's best interest in mind. So the information that she's been sharing specifically talks about a terrorist attack. Now, the window for this attack opens in mid-December. That's as specific as she knows. She and members of her team do a fantastic job gathering information through open source intelligence, through her existing contacts. She has tried to provide that information to the government, the U.S. government. Now, whether or not they're listening, I don't know. She says they aren't. But I wouldn't think that the current administration would ignore some of the things that she is saying. However, if you've seen any of her interviews on the Sean Ryan show, she has explained, and it has been confirmed, that the U.S. sends the Taliban $40 million in cash every single week. That has been going on for years. That came as quite a surprise to a lot of people, including people currently in Congress. Now, the information that she provides is specific about an attack here in the States, but a lot of this information can be useful to folks outside the United States. I know what you're thinking. Oh, Keith, that'll never happen. And my response to that is, I'm sure that's what all the teachers and students were saying at Columbine, Sandy Hook, the Christian school in Nashville, the church that had the vehicle rammed into it about 3 weeks ago. And you're right, the odds of something happening is minuscule compared to, obviously, the size of the United States and the large population of people that we have. So bear with me. You might say I'm full of crap, but that's okay. But I want to provide some of the information that she has provided for this upcoming terrorist attack. Now, it's been well documented with the previous administration that the southern border was wide open. You can't refute that. And it's also been confirmed by folks of the previous administration and the current administration that several known terrorists that were on watch lists are now in the United States. Sleeper cells, whatever you want to call them, they're here. Now, according to Sarah, they are just waiting for the go signal to carry out these attacks. And if these attacks are coordinated anything like 9/11, it's going to be devastating. Remember, the 9/11 hijackers were not aware of the other hijackers that were here in the United States prior to 9/11. That way, in the event a couple out of a particular cell were captured, they would not have any information about the other cells. So when the second plane prepared to fly into the second tower in New York, they had no idea that a plane had struck the other tower. I'm pretty sure they figured it out pretty quick. that they were to take out the tower that was not on fire. So here's some of the information that she has provided. And what she uses as a basis for that is the Hamas attacks in Israel back in 2023. The imminent attack on the United States will come in waves. And if you think about it, this makes sense. The first wave of attacks could possibly involve IEDs, suicide bombers, vehicle rammings, which are prevalent, and then coordinated attacks by trained active shooters or even downing airlines. Now, again, if you follow her on X, she comments a lot on some of the Muslim extremists that are talking about doing harm to America. She knows the names of a lot of these people, their family, where they were born, where they trained. She can tell you the number of terrorist training camps that are currently in Afghanistan and Pakistan. So I have every reason to believe the information that she is passing along is accurate. So talk about the first wave. If there is an active shooter, there are going to be multiple shooters. If you are near or a part of, unfortunately, one of these active shooter situations, run, hide, fight comes into play. Now, if the shooters are elevated, it's going to be a run, hide. Now, don't expect anybody to scale a 15-story building and try to take out the sniper. The reason for the multiple shooters is this. People are injured, people are killed, somebody calls 911, and what happens after that? You've seen the video of school shootings where there's about 600 police cars all around the school blocking the street, and unfortunately, in some instances, EMS is not able to make it to the scene, and it's just natural. I'm a former police officer, and I trained in active shooters at schools. A lot has been learned from Columbine. A lot has been learned from Sandy Hook and Uvalde, Texas. A lot has been learned from those active shooters. Currently, the protocol for law enforcement is that you go into the school regardless of how many officers you have. If it's just you, you're going in. If it's you and your partner, you and a backup officer, you're going in. You're not going to wait for the SWAT team. You're going to go in and look for the threat. The longer you wait, the more carnage is going to occur. So when these first responders run up to these injured civilians, that's why there's multiple shooters. Firefighters, EMS, they're not armed. They're going to run up to a patient, start first aid, and now they've become a target. If you know anything about warfare, a wounded soldier is worth more to the enemy than a dead soldier. You've seen it in all the war movies. You see it in the documentaries. A wounded soldier needs assistance, crying for help. What happens? The medic, their buddies come running up to them to try to render aid or pull them from the situation, and then they're shot. Now, it's very difficult for me to tell you not to run up and help someone who's bleeding, help someone who's seriously injured. But in a situation like this, especially with this upcoming terrorist attack that I believe is more than likely going to happen, you're putting yourself at significant risk by helping that person. And I get it. A friend, a family member, I would do the same thing. I would run up and try to assist them. But just know you're putting yourself in a lot more danger. You're putting yourself in additional danger given this tactic. So you're going to run and you're going to hide. Do not touch any unattended items. That's a no-brainer. You see a book bag, you see a suspicious package, regardless of the situation, don't walk up and kick it. Don't walk up and pick it up. Don't walk up and unzip the backpack. Because many times when there's IEDs or vehicle-borne IEDs, VBEDs, I believe is the acronym, there are multiple explosives placed. The firefighters run up to put out the car that exploded, and we don't know if it's a terrorist attack or not, and then the terrorists click off another bomb that is in the car beside it, or a box that is sitting up against the fence to now injure or kill those first responders. Something else she mentioned that makes a lot of sense is that if you are at the scene or part of a scene or running from the scene of a terrorist attack, do not get out your phone. Do not live stream. Believe it or not, the terrorists are smart enough to use social media. They will use social media. They will look at your live stream and they will know where you are. If you're doing your latest live at 5 impersonation of a newscaster, odds are a bad guy is watching. Her recommendation is to log off of all social medias and do not live stream. If you are approached by someone who looks like a cop, you need to verify they are actually a true police officer. When I was a police officer, the government shared intelligence about certain activities that they had information on that they believed was credible for my particular area, my county, my city, the part of the state that I live in. Believe it or not, officers still have their uniforms dry cleaned. Dozens, if not hundreds, of police uniforms are stolen every year. Now, why is that important? If there's an attack, the police are going to come to you and, move you to a safe location. Let me see your hands, that sort of thing, to make sure you're not part of the problem. You look at that person as a person of authority. They're coming to help you to move you out of the way, get you out of the scene, and keep you safe. Part of this attack, according to Sarah, is that bad actors will be wearing police uniforms or something that look very close to police uniforms and approach you. Verify who they are. If you're hiding in a storeroom, you're hiding in a store, and somebody's banging on the door saying, NYPD, open up, you need to verify that's exactly who it is. If the terrorists are in the area and they see 50 people run into a 7-Eleven and lock the doors and start hiding, guess where they could go? Now, when it comes to EMS, she has provided some tips for first responders. Always assume you're the target. Be aware of secondary devices, secondary explosions. That goes for everybody, including non-EMS. In law enforcement and in the military and in the IT world, they do something that's called red teaming, or they have a red team. In a military example, the red team are soldiers that their goal is to breach the perimeter of a military base and reach a particular location. It's like role playing. Now, sometimes, most times, the members on the other team, the actual soldiers, are aware that this is going on. So they're not going to shoot one of the red team members, but the purpose is to try to probe the security, for this example, at a military base. There are professionals out there that do threat assessments on schools, universities, businesses, and that's a form of red team training. Well, you can bet your bottom that the terrorists are aware and are surveilling a lot of this training. They can then use what they see and what they hear, the information they have gathered, to exploit that particular location. The suicide bombers will come in packs of 1, 2, 3. There's going to be more than one. And Sarah has talked about a suicide vest that is not detectable by the current security measures we have at our major airports. Now, I'm not going to dig on the TSA but so much, but I'm a white guy with hair down to my butt. I certainly don't look like the typical terrorists, but I get sent to secondary almost every time and get patted down. You've heard the stories. They're patting down grandmas, but they're not patting down military-aged males, that sort of thing. It's completely random as opposed to profiling or targeting somebody and moving them to secondary to ask them questions, to find out where they're going. Let me see your passport. What flight are you getting on? That whole thing. I've spoken before about taking a stop the bleed class, a first aid class, and that is very important. Don't think that it cannot happen to you, because it can. And if I had a nickel to bet, there is somebody listening to this podcast right now that has either been involved in some sort of attack, lived in the same city of some sort of an attack, or they know somebody that's been a part of one of these attacks. It's that prevalent. If you listen to Sarah, you look at social media, you read other threat assessments that are put out by other professionals, they are in agreement with Sarah that this attack will more than likely happen. The folks in the EU, these attacks happen often. You've got the London bombing, the subway bombing, the double-decker bus bombing. I mean, I could go on and on and on. There was a terrorist attack yesterday in Belgrade, I believe. I believe it was an IED near a tent or something. was a couple years ago, the people in Asheville, North Carolina, that were at, I believe it was a Christmas parade. You had the vehicle ramming in New Orleans. Those folk just walking down the street, enjoying the afternoon. It's not going to happen here. There was a vehicle ramming in Germany this past Christmas. So that would be Christmas, maybe it's Christmas 24. Somebody ran their vehicle through one of the Christmas markets and killed several people. I don't mean to get up on my soapbox, but I kind of mean to get up on my soapbox because I think this is important. Situational awareness will keep you alive. Trusting your gut will keep you alive. You can take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. You can take what Sarah says with a grain of salt. And back to the $40 million that goes to the Taliban every week. Several bills have been introduced into Congress to have that funding stop. And as I understand it, it's stalled in some Senate committee. The money is going to the Taliban because the Taliban is saying they're using it to fight ISIS. Because for the most part, ISIS and the Taliban do not get along. But there are so many different factions. And if you listen to Sarah, you read her book, I believe it's called Benghazi, Know Thy Enemy. She goes into a lot of detail. She is a very smart cookie. She can tell you, she talked about a particular shipment of that $40 million on the Sean Ryan show. She actually broke down where the money went, how much each one of these government officials was given, and how much of that money that went to the government officials was then given directly to terrorists. So believe it or not, in a way, we are funding these attacks that I believe are going to happen. How crazy does that sound? The FBI actually opened an investigation on Sarah several months ago, I believe, in my opinion, to get her to be quiet about this. I'm not going to go into 9/11 and all the conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff because it's useless at this point. But I think people need to sit up, open their ears, shut their mouths, and listen to what's going on. She and these other professionals that are providing these threat assessments have absolutely nothing to gain by telling us lies, by providing misinformation. If you follow her on X or just look at her feed on X, you would be surprised several times a day there are bots and people under fictitious names that are trying to discredit Sarah and the things that she says. That's a normal tactic on social media. If a politician says something, somebody from the other party is going to say, no, that's not true because of X, Y, and Z. Well, I trust Sarah more than every politician in DC combined. Again, she has no reason to make this crap up. So for all those that are listening, take this very seriously. She says the window opens in mid-December, less than 2 months away. Now, is something going to happen December 16th, 17th? We don't know. There's a very good chance that it will involve airlines. Now let's talk about the AWS outage a couple days ago. The data center up in Dulles, Virginia, that Amazon has, was taken down by some sort of software glitch. That particular data center runs 30% of the internet globally. And I talked about all the different services that were down, Delta, United, whatever it happens to be. Can you imagine some sort of attack on our infrastructure that on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, a couple days after Christmas, if something was to happen, an attack on the infrastructure that does not allow people to board the planes. The reservation systems go down, ATC goes down. Can you imagine the number of people stranded in this airport? They are a prime target for an attack, for an active shooter. And again, I know what you're thinking. Keith, you're crazy. How can you come up with this stuff? I'm just repeating what Sarah has put out there. And again, I can't say it enough. I tend to take what she says as the truth. I would be irresponsible. I would be remiss if I just totally blew her off. So read what she's saying, read what other professional threat assessments are saying. Believe it or not, believe half of it, none of it, or all of it. I'm not saying don't go to the mall. I'm not saying don't go to a Christmas parade. I'm not saying don't book a plane ticket and go see your grandmother in San Diego. This goes for the folks in the EU as well. If you listen to the news, you watch the videos, I believe it's Northern Ireland, or maybe it's just the Republic of Ireland, the protests that are going on right now, the protests against immigration, this is all really happening. And again, the terrorists are already here in the United States. So folks, please be aware of your surroundings. Trust your gut. If something doesn't look right, something doesn't smell right, walk away. Be very mindful of your environment. It could happen at a restaurant. It could happen at a sporting event. It could happen anywhere where there is a large gathering of people. I pray that she's wrong. I pray that the government gets a hold of this information and takes action with it, but we can't trust that is going to happen. You are your own first responder. You are responsible for your safety and the safety of your family. Again, I'm not saying cower in fear. And most Americans that are listening to this right now are probably saying, well, damn straight, I'm not going to change my daily routine because of something that might happen. And I get that. When I walk out to go to work every morning, I'm not saying to myself, is there somebody waiting in the bushes to ambush me? Is there going to be a situation on the way to work? But where I work and what I do is a target. And I'm mindful of that. I'm aware of that. I'm always looking around, assessing my situation. I've said it a million times. There is a fine line between being paranoid and being prepared. All right, folks, I'm going to get off my soapbox. If you've stuck around this far, thank you for listening. I'm not plugging Sarah's book, but she provides some great information. But I am asking you to read up on what she's saying. If you're on X, at least look at her feed. You don't have to follow her. Look at her feed, look at her retweets, and see what she's saying. All right, folks, thank you so much. And given all of this information, and given the fact that the world is a time bomb waiting to go off, you can just sense it in other countries. Just the pressure that these people are under, the political pressure, the social pressure. A lot of people are pretty much fed up with numerous things, political, non-political, whatever. Everybody is very aware of what goes on and what's going on in their city, in their country. And a lot of this is very important. You need to pay attention. All right, folks, as always, please be careful out there. Take care of one another. And until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Common Sense Practical Prepper Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. While you're at it, help spread the word by leaving a rating and review.